Hi, I'm Jem, knitting pattern designer, yarn dyer and all-round knitting enthusiast. I'm also the owner of Under the Olive Tree Knits, which is an online knitting website where you can buy knitting patterns, yarns, knitting kits, needles, accessories and much more. So do be sure to go and check the website out. It's www.undertheolivetreeknits.com. So I've been knitting for about 20 years now, and rarely a day goes by where I don't pick up the needles. And my favourite things to knit are shawls and socks, and today I want to share my love of sock knitting with you and hopefully inspire you to cast on a pair of your own. So my sock pattern, Let the Yarn Shine, is specifically written for the beginner sock knitter. It's a basic adult sock pattern and it's got 3 different sizes, but you can also easily customise the length of the leg and the foot as well. So we'll talk about how to do that as we go through the pattern. And the pattern itself is full of photographs and handy hints. And then you can also use the videos that accompany this workshop as you work through the pattern too. So this is what we'll be knitting, and when you're knitting a sock you're essentially knitting a tube and then adding a heel and toes to that tube. And there are many different ways that you can knit a tube by knitting in the round. You can use double pointed needles, you can use a tiny circular needle, or you can use a really long circular needle and knit in the round using the magic loop method. But the pattern is written for 4 double pointed needles, so I would suggest starting with those as you work through the pattern, and then as you knit more socks you can experiment with what feels more comfortable for you. Personally, I've tried other methods and I always come back to knitting with double pointed needles. They just feel the most comfortable for me, and yeah, so the pattern is written using the double pointed. And I would also suggest, if you're using these needles, to go for a wooden or a bamboo needle as well, because they just give a little bit more grip to the yarn than a metal needle would, and hopefully stop your stitches from escaping from the ends. So there are many different ways that you can knit a sock. You can start by casting on your stitches at the toes and then working your way all the way up to the top of the leg. You can knit your sock as a tube and then go and add your toes and your heels afterwards, or you can knit your socks from the top down all the way down to the toes, which is the method that we're going to be using in this pattern. And as you knit more socks as well, you'll discover that there are many different ways that you can work a sock heel. But for this pattern we're going to be working the heel as a heel flap and a gusset, which is this piece of triangular fabric here, and in my opinion this gives the best fitting and most comfortable sock. So using the Let the Yarn Shine sock pattern, we're going to be casting on our stitches at the top, and then we're going to be working a section of ribbing for the cuff. And then we're going to be working in a straight tube all the way down to the top of the heel. And then when we get to the top of the heel, we're going to separate the stitches so that we're just working these heel stitches back and forth like regular knitting. And then when we get to the bottom of the heel, we'll get to my favourite bit, which is where we turn the heel. And that's where you'll start to see the sock taking shape, because it just creates the shaping for the foot. And that bit never gets old, it's always good fun. So once we turn the heel, we'll then go back and we'll pick up the stitches along the side of the heel flap, and then we'll create our gusset section here, and that just gives the extra bit of fabric to make it nice and comfortable. And then when we get to the bottom of the gusset, we will then go back to knitting in the round for the foot all the way around until we get to the toes, and then the toes are shaped by using some decreases, and then we finish off by closing the toes with Kitchener stitch. So that's how the sock is constructed, and if that all sounds complicated and overwhelming, don't worry, we'll walk through it step by step with the videos, and you can always refer to the pattern and the videos as you go along. So now that we've talked about the needles and the construction of the sock, let's talk about my favourite part of starting a new project, and that's choosing the yarn. So this pattern is written for use with a 4-ply fingering or sock weight yarn, and you'll need one skein of 100 grams, or if you don't have a full skein, each pair takes about 60 to 70 grams, and that works out about 260 to 300 yards, or 240 to 280 meters. So if you've got a barely used skein in your stash, then you can use that too. But as the name suggests, this pattern is great for showing off those one-of-a-kind jazzy skeins that you may have hidden in your stash. Because the stitches on the sock are nice and small, they're really going to showcase any pops of colour, and you're going to end up with a wonderfully unique pair of socks for your yarn. So when choosing your yarn, I would recommend perhaps picking something with an element of nylon in it, or something with a really high twist, just to add a little bit of extra durability. I wouldn't necessarily recommend knitting socks with a single ply merino yarn, as the fibres aren't that strong, and your socks are quickly going to get out of shape and felt as well. So bear that in mind when you're choosing your yarn, is to try and go for something with a really high twist, or perhaps an element of nylon in it. And also, if it is your first pair of hand knitted socks, perhaps pick something a little bit lighter, a little bit less jazzy maybe, just so that you can really clearly see your stitches as you're knitting them. So for my socks, I'm going to be using this colour, which is this is called Seafoam, and it's one of the custom dye colours available on my website under the Olive Tree Knits. And this is a 75% superwash merino and 25% nylon mix, so that is absolutely perfect for sock knitting. So are you ready to knit your first pair of socks? In order to follow the videos, you'll need to download the Let the Yarn Shine sock pattern, and I'll pop all the links below. So go ahead, download your copy, and let's get started.